Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me. This is Kathy, and I am happy to be back with another collaboration with my friend Marla over at Mad About Cards and Crafts. This month we decided to create a slimline card, but we had to incorporate 12 by 12 paper, which is kind of difficult for me because I don't have a whole lot of 12 by 12 paper, but I did manage to pull out these two sheets from my stash. I believe they're from Altenew, but I couldn't say for sure. I decided to use the striped paper and have that actually be my card base. So I cut it down to 7 3/4 by 8 3/4 and folded it in half. Then I lined up the folded cardstock with my slimline die, which is from Trinity stamps. I made sure to line up the fold of the card right below the area on the die where it would cut, so that line of scallops up at the top won't actually cut out, because I wanted to make sure that my card remained intact. Next, I stamped the macarons from the Tea Time Buddies stamp set from Not Too Shabby onto some of the splotchy parts of the other 12 by 12 sheet of cardstock, and I did fussy cut those out. I decided to do a little bit of paper piecing with my little mouse who's in the teacup. So I stamped the teacup onto the same splattery piece of cardstock, and I just made sure to have the teacup be within the pink area of that cardstock. For the stamping on the splattered cardstock, I used VersaFine Onyx black ink. But when I stamped the mouse onto the white cardstock, which is Cougar Super Smooth cardstock, I used My Favorite Things Extreme Black Hybrid ink so that I could do a little bit of Copic coloring. For the coloring of the mouse, I did keep it really very simple. I started with W4 and added that where the shadows would be, particularly along the bottom of his little face, since the cup would probably be casting a little bit of a shadow there. Once I had the shadows put in, I came in with W2 and blended that out just a little bit. I made sure to leave quite a bit of white space in the center of his face, as well as at the top of his ears, and then I blended all of that out with W0. For the insides of his ears and his cheeks, I used R20 and R00. For his tail, I colored it in with E42, and then I did add some shadow above and below the little bow with the W4, and then I blended that out with W2. For the little bow, I used BV000 and BV11, and I wasn't too worried about getting too much dimension or contrast there because it was a very small little part of the image. I'll make sure to link to Marla's video in the description box below, as well as all of the products that I used and the Copic markers that I used. After I was done coloring the mouse, I fussy cut the little teacup, and I slowed this down a little bit just so I could show you how I got that pink space out that's like inside of the handle. I actually cut up along the side and actually cut the bottom part of the handle away from the little teacup. Then I used my scissors to get in that little spot there to cut out that space so that there would be a hole in the handle so that you could see through the handle. I guess that's the best way to explain that. I find the easiest way to do fussy cutting is to hold your scissors as straight as possible and turn the cardstock as you're doing the cutting. Especially on images that are kind of rounded like this, you'll see that I'm turning my cardstock more than my scissors. I also fussy cut the mouse, and I did the same thing for the teacup handle on the mouse as I did for the pink teacup. And then after I was done, I took a black marker and just went around the edges to finish off the cut lines. It makes it appear like my cutting is a lot more perfect than it actually is. Next, I stamped the sentiment using VersaFine Onyx black ink onto a piece of Neenah 80-pound solar white cardstock. I ran that through my die cut machine with one of the banner dies, and the banner die was just a little bit too long, so I just ran it through once, and then I shifted the die over to make it the length that I wanted. The other thing that the Scallop Slimline die set comes with, in addition to the scalloped Slimline dies, are these really cute little banners. and they actually include tails for the banners. So I cut those out as well, and then just used a thin strip of foam tape to adhere those banner tails to my actual banner. The other slimline die that I used is the Scallop Oval Slimline die by Whimsy. And for this card, I decided just to use the scalloped frames that cut out, but I didn't want them to be white. So I used a Copic marker to color those really quickly. Nothing fancy there. I decided to add some details to the little teacup, so I used my white gel pen, and this one is a pretty fine point. It's a 0.05. And on the scallops of the cup, I just did diagonal lines so it would be like a crosshatch pattern. And then I filled in the little polka dots on the cup completely. To put my card together, I did use the Scalloped Oval Slimline die cut that I had cut from white cardstock as a guide. I used removable Scotch tape just to hold that in place so I could glue those frames in. After putting little dots of liquid glue on the back of the frames, and I would piece them into place, and then I'd put an acrylic block on top of that, just so the glue had a little bit of time to settle in. I really wasn't happy with the stripes showing through the scalloped frames, so I decided to emboss the ovals with my Swiss Dots embossing folder, which I haven't used in 100 years at least, and adhered those to the inside of the green frames. I used liquid glue to adhere the scalloped frames as well as the white ovals, and then I popped up my images with some foam tape. For the banner, I only put foam tape along the center of it because the tails were already popped up. For the word sweet, I die cut that 3 times from white cardstock and stacked it up. Once I was happy with the placement of everything, I pressed the images on foam tape down so that they would be really stuck, and then I used liquid glue to adhere the sweet sentiment die cut. For final touches, I used Stardust Stickles and added that to the top of the macarons, and then I used my white Nuvo drops just to add a little bit more embellishment, and that's it. That finishes up my card for today. Don't forget to click the link in the description box below to check out Marla's video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, I'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.